All right. Who, raise your hand if you didn't do your 5 days of meditations. If you did not do it, raise your hand. You did 7? Okay, good. Good. Okay, so everyone got at least 25 minutes? Yeah? What are our reflections? Because a lot can change. If you did it for 25 minutes, that's a good enough amount of time to spend time with your thoughts to kind of see how crazy our mind can be. Okay? So what are our reflections?
I just wrote days, day 5, I pulled the thought out, thought about it.
Okay, so that's good. So what was different from that than your normal everyday perception? Everyone speak up. It should be interesting. It's a cool thing to do. So what are our reflections from the meditation we did? Did anyone see changes or insight?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's saying yes. Now tell me, what are they?
I noticed
Close that door, Jadon. Thank you. What'd you notice?
more how I'm more in the present. Yeah. A lot of times when I'm in my thoughts, or I catch myself a lot of times in the future.
Okay. So when we're catching more thoughts, we're becoming more present. That's really good. Okay? Because again, we learned the more present someone is, the more they can do what? Grow faster, focus. Yep. Okay, so that's awesome. Because that is a direct correlation. Because are thoughts and time connected? Yeah, right? So we're thinking more, that means we're in time more, which means we're not here more. Okay, that's really good. Are there any other insights we had?
I felt calmer.
Calmer? Okay, that's another byproduct.
More not open-minded, but everything just, yeah. I feel so.
Okay. So that's really good. So you guys so it's a state, right? Mindfulness is a state, a way of seeing, a way of feeling, a way of being, all right? That's awesome, because when we're in that calmer state, is it easier to see clearly? Yeah. If we can see clearly in an easier fashion, can we make better decisions? Yeah. Right? Are we going to...
surreal almost.
Yeah, okay. So this is awesome. So is everyone kind of liking what we did through the last week? Do we see how, if you do this on a daily basis, how much a benefit it could be for you? Yeah, okay. And so when we talk about these meditations, input is output, right? So the more you work on it, okay, the more results you're going to get. Now, does it mean you have to be sitting down to work on what we do? No. So I'd encourage you still translate it to everyday life. All of you right now could focus on being present deliberately, which would train yourself. Does that make sense? But I'm excited for you guys. So everyone did like it? Cool. Okay. So the biggest thing is just to continue to do it. And I'm going to keep giving you new activities, but say you don't you guys are here for 7 weeks, so you don't get 5 out of 12 classes with me. Can you still work on the activities that you like when I'm gone? I would encourage you to do that. Don't lose your consistency. That's the most important thing. It's like a snap streak, right? You don't want to lose your snap streak with whoever you're talking to. Okay? That's how your meditation should be. Don't lose your meditation streak. But that's awesome. So all of you are having insights. That's beautiful. Is there anyone that's not having insights or not seeing how this could help them? It's okay if you don't. Okay. So biggest thing, keep our agreement next time you come in here. Much better job doing your activities compared to last class. Cool? Awesome. So first class was about what, mainly? The mind, right? Mindfulness. Learning the basics of what that actually is. The second class was what? Time. Okay. The third class, write down the date. And this is going to be about a concept called the heart.
What is it,
24th, June 24th. Yes, I do. Anybody else need one? Just make sure you guys return these. These are, everyone else has taken my pens and pencils. I only have 2. Everybody else got stuff? Who needs one? Okay. Cool, we good? Now the heart. All right, beautiful. Okay, and we'll get in, once we go through our 6 to 7 classes, this picture will make sense, but this is kind of how I drew up the curriculum. And so the problem, boys, when we talk about the heart, okay, the problem is that we think focusing on ourselves will bring us more of what we're looking for than if we were focusing more on others, okay? This is a misconception, a misbelief. I promise you, when I started to switch this mindset, okay, and is it normal for you guys to focus a lot on yourselves at your age? Very normal, okay? And I'm sure you've heard parents and people and good people that tell you to focus on others. Yes? I'm going to show you why it benefits you more, right? So it's kind of crazy how you twist it that way. It's doing more for you when you actually focus on other people. So it's not like we're just forgetting about yourself, okay? The cause of it is something called the separate ego, okay? So write that down. The cause of the problem with the heart, all right, is the separate ego. And we're going to distinguish what that actually means, okay? Because there's different types of ego, and I'm going to explain what that is, okay? But the biggest thing is that the problem is we're focusing more on ourselves. We're not getting more of what we're looking for. Focusing on others is going to help us get more of what we want. We cool with that? And the solution is building on the heart. So that's why it's the subject of this speech. And there's a lot of things that go into building the subject of the heart. Does that make sense? And the biggest thing with these speeches is get rid of every conclusion you've ever made about definitions. I'm going to tell you the definition in my curriculum of each word so we don't get words mixed up. Because can all of you see a word like the heart, and can it mean a lot of different things to people? Yeah. Yes. So let's just let go of all definitions for right now, and I'll define it, and if you have questions after that, we'll ask. Cool? So, the ego. All right, what is the ego? Has anybody heard of this term before? Okay, what's the ego? Like what?
Like a perception.
Okay, that's boom. I actually love that definition. It's like a perception. Okay, so everyone write this down. The ego, okay, is a way of seeing yourself. It's an image of yourself that you see about you. So that's a collection of thoughts, feelings, knowledge, experiences. Okay, it's everything you've accumulated in your lifetime, and it's built this image of how you see yourself. Does that make sense? So ego is a type of perception of how you view you, how you look at you. Does that make sense? Okay. Once everybody's gotten that written down, let me know. Okay, what is this? Thank you. Okay, butterflies have what? Wings, okay? This is what we call the wings of mindfulness. All right? So we have, what is step 1 to mindfulness? You have to do what? Gosh dang it, it's not working. What do you have to do? What's step 1? What is mindfulness, boys? Someone define it for me. I said last class, you got to come to me with a definition. What is it? Yes. So it's on purpose, correct? Is it on purpose? Is it deliberate? Yeah. Awareness of this moment. So yes, it could be seeing your thoughts. It could be seeing your feelings. It could be purposely aware of what's going outside of you, right? So it's inside and outside, on purpose awareness of this moment. So watching, okay? If one of the wings doesn't work, gosh, I don't know why that's not working. If one of the wings doesn't work here, what happens to the butterfly? Can't fly. It does not work. This is an essential piece of mindfulness. Otherwise, you are not doing it right, okay? And that is what we call non-judgment. Write that down. Non-judgment. So you have watching and non-judgment. These are the wings to mindfulness. Okay? And let me know when we got this down. Everybody got it? Beautiful. So, before we talk about non-judgment, let's again talk about different perceptions. What's a perception? Well, that's the ego, right?
Something.
So perception we talked about in class 1, it's okay. It's a way of seeing. So write that down. Perception is a way of seeing. Yes, Connor? Non-judgment, second one. Perception is a way of seeing. There's 2 main types of perception we're going to talk about today. There's objective perception and subjective perception. Have you guys heard of this before? Really? That's okay. I'm actually surprised you haven't heard it. No one's ever heard of this word before?
What is it?
Objective versus subjective?
Objective, I've heard of it like in a video game, like what your main point is.
Okay, that's good. Let's use this example in a video game. What would be an example of an objective perception in a video game?
There's something to do. You gotta do.
Okay, you're close. So I was thinking in the way you see the video game. So Fortnite, that's what type of view? Third person, right? You see the person, okay? So I would consider that an objective view. So listen. An objective view is a way of seeing without your preferences in it. Does that make sense? I'd write that down. Objective is a perception without your preferences in it. So does that mean the ego is involved in that way of seeing? No. Okay?
Perception without?
Without the ego. That's objective. Okay? What do we think subjective is? With the ego. So our wants. What fits in line with what we think, what we believe, what we want, likes, dislikes. Okay, that's subjective. Objective is without the ego, right? So in Fortnite, you can see your person, correct, as third person. That's a good analogy for objective. An example of subjective is when we zoom in and it's first person. Does that make sense? The second wing of mindfulness is what? Why? Why is non-judgment the second wing of mindfulness?
Because if you judge your thoughts, it can affect you in a bad way.
Okay, so that's really good. So let's talk about different statements in basketball. Let's make this about sports, okay? Say we airball a shot. Okay, we airball a shot, all right? Most people, what would be something that goes on in their head when that happens?
Terrible. That sucks.
You suck, I don't want to shoot, okay? Are both of those judgment statements? Both of those are subjective perceptions, okay? What would an objective perception of that situation be?
Nothing.
Well, it would be, I airballed.
Next play.
Well, yes, but listen for a second, okay? So objective perception is about what actually happened. It's not your judgment on it. It's not your point of view. It's not your likes and dislikes of the situation, okay? Is that seeing clearly if you're just seeing with objective perception? Yes, okay? Your subjective point of view distorts what you see, okay? And that's what's preventing you from coming from a place of ease, effortlessness, and strain and tension is what comes from the subjective view because it's clashing, right? It doesn't fit with what I want, okay? That's why non-judgment is the second wing of mindfulness. Does that make sense, boys? So let's think of other points of view, okay? What about the weather? You good, Keeks? Went down the wrong tube? Okay? Think of the weather, right? When we talk about the weather, do most people make subjective perception statements? Yeah, right? I'm hot, I'm cold. Okay, is that very relative?
Yeah.
I'm hot and I'm cold, right? Say I live in Antarctica and I show up to here. Obviously, that's going to be what to me?
Hot.
Very hot, right? And vice versa, okay? So the weather, instead of saying, I'm hot, I'm cold, okay, it could be what the actual temperature is, okay? So when we're mindful and we're looking at thoughts and feelings, okay, are we labeling them as good or bad? Yes or no? No, because that's judgment, right? You're labeling them as helpful, not helpful, okay? An example could be cause and consequence, and this is how we need to look at things, kids, okay? Because if we're only looking at cause and consequences, what does that mean? We're only concerned about what?
Objective.
Yes. Are we only concerned about the result of a situation?
Yeah.
We're not saying it's good or bad, right? We're saying, you do this, this happens. That is an objective perception. That's non-judgment. So when we're doing our meditations and we get lost in thought, most people, do they judge that?
Yeah.
Does that prevent them, okay, from actually doing the mindfulness in the first place? Yes, you just see it. Just see it as it is. Not labeling it good, bad, I should do this, I shouldn't do that. Okay, it's just as it is. And then you come back to the breath. Does that make sense? Write this down. Judgment distorts your view of reality. You are not seeing clearly if you're judging because you're adding on to that perception. Okay? So you can look at this circle as, say, objective perception. Putting a judgment on something, boys, is like adding another layer of perception. How you see. View of reality. Either one works. Okay? You can think of subjective point of view as covering the objective point of view. Does that make sense, boys? And what I'm trying to teach you is how to see clearly. Because if you can see clearly, can you make better decisions? Yes, because then you're only concerned with result, cause and consequence. Not good or bad, it's you do this, this works. You do this, this doesn't work. It's not good or bad. Does that make sense? Because the second we start judging, does that put us in a pass-fail mindset? So does that slow growth? If I'm in not a pass-fail mindset, which means I'm not judging, I'm just looking at cause and consequence and what the actual result is, will you grow a lot faster? There's no pressure on yourself, right? And that's the problem. That's what's preventing us all from fast growth is we're judging. We're not just looking as it actually happens. What is? Not what I want, it's what is. Are we cool? Because this can get complicated, but are we kind of starting to see why non-judgment is so crucial and when we're trying to be aware with mindfulness? We're all on the same page? Any major questions so far? No? Okay, cool. Judgment equals separation. Write that down. What do we think this means? Yeah, so say we have our objective perception, right? That's all we need to be mindful of, correct? The second we judge something, does it add a second layer of what we think it's supposed to be? Yes. That separation is the problem, right? You remember when I said the separate ego is the problem? Yes? We remember that? Okay. So this is what we call the separate ego, is when we judge something, okay? What type of ego do you think we want? What's the opposite of separate? Well, yes. Interconnected, or together is another good word, okay? So I want you to write down, we don't want the separate ego. We want a together or interconnected ego. All right? And I'll get into what this means. But if we have the separate ego, boys, does that mean we create a hierarchy when we look at other people? Yeah. You're like, that guy's above me, this guy's below me. Okay? That creates separation. Does that create tension? Separation creates tension. Okay? Because an example, if you go into a room with someone in your separate ego mind that you're below, does that create a lack of confidence? Yes, that puts strain and pressure on you and prevents you from seeing the situation as it is. You're not seeing it as, I'm in a room with this person. You're seeing it as, I'm in a room with someone that's intimidating to me, or someone that's I'm not as good as. That's all judgment. Do we see how this becomes a problem in every part of our life? Okay, it comes into all scenarios. Okay, an example of the type of ego we want, interconnected, and we can look at this as a team, right? If we're on a basketball team, how many people are on the court? 5. You're 20% of the people on your team, correct? Most of us, do we look at the team as separate from us? Yeah. Okay, you view the teammates as separate from you. Imagine if you looked at the teammates as part of who you are. Would that be a lot different story? Would you handle, say, bad plays or good plays for yourself a lot differently if you saw it that way? Would your teammates probably get a lot better if you saw them as part of who you are? Yeah, because you'd actually be concerned. You're not concerned about them because you want to make yourself feel better. You're concerned because you actually identify partially with them. That's what it means to be interconnected with the ego. Does that make sense? So that means in points of view, do we see everyone the same? When I look at another person? Yes. Does that mean I'm telling you to be completely selfish and we put everyone before us? No. Okay? So we have to find that middle way. We're not separating ourselves from other people whatsoever. Does that make sense? Okay, it can get a little tricky, but you can write down, let's use the example of the team, all right? An example of a separate ego statement when we think about our team, all right? It could be, the team is part of my life. The team is part of my life, right? That's separation. You're separating who you are from your teammates. What would be a interconnected statement? Your teammates are a part of me. Okay? That's good. That was good, Matthias. That was a good guess. Okay. Is seeing things as more interconnected than separate a clear point of view? Is it more objective? Yeah. Is it a righter? Yes. Is it a more correct way of seeing things? Yeah. Yes. Most people, when they look at this table, they see the table as separate from everything that built this table, right? Think of yourself. Are so many things involved in creating you? So many things that you have no idea. Like your ancestors from 200 years ago, they affected who you are, right? Your parents, your teachers, all these people help build you into you. You are not a separate from all the other events in your life or in your sport. Does that make sense? That's the correct way of viewing things if you actually look deeply, which can help you stop identifying with that separate ego that's causing us all the problems, which is causing us all the judgments, which is causing us all the strain, and preventing us from being really, really good at whatever we want to do and growing fast. It all comes back to speed of growth. Are we all on the same page so far? Cool, because this can get complicated. Beautiful. All right, effortlessness. Okay, what's effortlessness? Something comes naturally, or it's really, really easy, right? You're not putting any strain into it, okay? What do you think brings about effortlessness?
Walking.
Well, yeah, that's an example of something that's effortless for you, for sure. Practice. Okay, what is there a lack of? I've said the word a couple times. There's lack of strain or tension, right? What creates that? Close. What do we learn is the enemy of this wing of mindfulness?
Separate ego.
Judging, right? Does judging create the strain? It creates that separation. This is not how I want things to be, right? Which prevents you from seeing it as it is, okay? So judgment creates the strain, and the strain is preventing the what? Effortlessness, right? If you're effortless in everything you do, are you going to grow a lot faster? Yeah, that's the fastest way to grow, when you're doing something that's effortless. When you're in the flow state, what's going on?
You're not thinking.
You're not thinking. So do thoughts prevent effortlessness too? What do thoughts arise from?
A judgment.
Boom. See how this all connects, right? When we have more thoughts, that prevents the flow state. When we're in the flow state, we're fully present, so we have less what? Strain, because we have less thoughts and we're making less judgments. You see how that all connects? Okay? So you're going to be effortless more if you practice non-judgment more, because the judgment is creating more thoughts, which is preventing you from being in that effortless state of whatever you're trying to get good at. Cool? Pass-fail mindset. What's a pass-fail mindset? So is it judging? Pass-fail mindset is straight judgment, right? If I'm good or bad, okay, I'm not looking at it as it is. It's not, an example could be shooting, right? Shoot 500 shots a day, most people look at that as I'm going to get good at shooting, rather than I shoot 500 shots a day, I make more shots. That's the difference between objective and subjective perceptions. Why do you think objective is going to help us more? Well, are you concerned with facts, what actually gets results? Yeah, right? Opinions, you care more about being right than actually what grows you and what matters. Cool? All right, that's good. Beautiful, got through that slide. Now, this is why it's so important to learn about the separate ego. Okay? There's going to be more what as a result of the ego? Fear, write that down. More separate ego equals more fear. Why do we think this is? So that's really, really good. He talked about the word expectation. When we have an expectation, is judgment behind an expectation? Yep. And does expectation create a separation from the moment? And that separation, whenever we talk about separation, there's what in between that? Strain, right? Yes, the judgment creates the separation, which creates the strain, which creates the problem. Do you see how that works, boys? Okay. So say we're identifying ourselves with people on our team. They're part of myself. They're not separate from me anymore. Is there less weight on your performance?
Yeah.
Are you going to feel lighter and more free? Because you're not identifying with just how you play, right? You're concerned with the team. That's part of you. So do you see how there's more fear and more weight on yourself when you're separate? Way more. It's way more beneficial for you to start identifying with others around you and everyone that affects your life. Way more. You're going to have way less fear, and you're going to stop having so much pressure on yourself. Pressure comes from being separate. Write that down. Pressure comes from being separate. So essentially, sum it up, boys, do all of our problems come from the separate ego? Yes. All of them. Every single one. Okay, why is that? Yep, and so problem means there's what from the moment? Separation. That's creating the problems and strain. So let's say Aiden's sitting down. He's trying to meditate for 5 minutes from one of my meditations that I signed. But his brothers can't shut up. They're making constant noise. Okay? 2 ways Aiden could go about this situation. One way, and this is what most of you would do, you would get upset. Why? Because they're annoying. What is annoying? That's a what? A judgment. You're not seeing it as it is. You're not seeing it as my brother's making noise while I try to meditate. Okay, you're seeing it as something that's bad. Does that make sense? Which is what's creating the strain, which is what is creating your perception of a problem. You see that? The other way he could look at it is, this is what's happening. This is what's happening now, and I can only do what at all times? What I can? Control. So he can respond to the situation to the best of his ability. But if he's caught in that tension, in that problem, in the perception of separation, he's probably going to have a much worse meditation session than seeing it as it is and learning how to respond from it. You see how that works? So are we all getting how that separation is that's the issue? So problems are a choice essentially. If you learn to take on that perception of just what is happening, what is it objectively, and then I can respond to it. Not good or bad, or this is happening to me and I want it this way, right? The I want it this way is the separate ego. Now, is it going to be perfect, boys? Do you think I still run into the separate ego all the time? But you'll start to notice, if you really soak in this class, you'll start to see the separate ego all the time. And it's causing you all your problems. This person's not acting this way, and I want them to act this way. Or this is supposed to go this way, and I want it to be this way. Right? That's the problem, that separation, rather than seeing it as it is and responding to the best of your ability. So do you see how that separation prevents all our growth, essentially? You get caught up in it, and it doesn't have to be that way. You're caught up in something that is not necessary. And that's the biggest thing. It is not necessary when we separate. Cool? Now, fear. What is fear? Let's define it.
Being scared.
Yeah, being scared. Fear is a what? A response. Write that down. Fear is a response. That's a huge, huge word. So does that mean fear is caused by something? Yes. Most of the time, what is it caused by? Yep. Where is that coming from? Strain, where is that coming from?
Judgment.
Judgment. Boom. It all comes back to that judging. You're judging the situation, which is creating the strain of what could happen. All right? So fear is a response to thoughts or simulations of what could happen. Right? Is it very useful to have fear in different moments? Yes? Okay, a good example could be, say you guys are in the woods and you see a bear in front of you. You're going to feel what? Fear. But let's break down that situation. Is the fear a response to what could happen? Yeah. It's helpful. We need fear because we needed you to get out of that situation, but let's still understand that it's a response to what your thought about what the bear could do to me. Right? And now if we zoom out to that situation and how it's translating into real life, do we have that same fear response with things that are way, way less important than running away from a bear? Example could, you guys are all in high school, gossip, drama, friend stuff. Okay, we have a similar fear response to, say, you're in a situation with a bear. It's all about what could happen, and you're judging the event that could happen. It's a response to that thought. Does that make sense? So if we have more ego, more separate ego, okay, we have more separation to events, correct? And if we have more separation to events, that means there's going to be more what? Fear. Okay? So if we stop separating ourselves, our perceptions from the events, are we going to play with less fear? Are we going to perform better with less fear? 100%. So effortlessness and fearlessness are a result from non-judgment. I'd write that down. Those are two of the words that coaches, trainers say the most. Be effortless, right? Be fearless. Okay, it all stems from non-judgment. You're not separating yourself from what's going on. Are we all on the same page? Do you guys think this is nonsense, or do you think it's actually could? Yeah. Most people don't talk about stuff like this. They don't break it down to see cause and consequence. But the biggest thing, if we go back to the notes here, okay, so we know that fear is a what? A response. Okay, and it comes from thoughts or some sort of simulation. That's good. What does that come from? Beautiful. And where does the judgment come from? Yes, comes from that separate ego. You see how this all works, boys? So how do we get rid of this whole issue? We just get rid of the separate ego, right? We take an objective perception, right? Just pull the root out. Then none of this other domino effect happens. Kind of cool, isn't it? So you, instead of trying to, look at your thoughts and change your thoughts, that's not going to do much because you're still judging under the thoughts, right? If we stop taking that perception, all this goes away. Domino effect. Cool? For the next speeches, though, whenever I say ego, that just means a separate ego. That's what I'm referring to. Cool? So I have to stop saying those two words. So whenever I say ego, I'm referring to the separate ego. Got it? All on the same page? Can someone give me a time? Shoot. 10:15. Okay. I'm going to have to go through this fast. Big word, compassion, write it down. Now, what do you think is one of the best ways to stop focusing so much on the ego? Focus more on other people. Distribute that focus, that energy that you have on yourself to other people. That is compassion. So write this down, okay? Actually, before you write it down, listen, eyes and ears, Jayon, okay? What's empathy? When you feel someone else's shoes, when you feel their situation, that's empathy. Compassion is acting on empathy, so you truly actually want to help another person, okay? So compassion is to understand the struggle of others and the desire to alleviate that. Write that down. Compassion is to understand the struggle of others and the desire to alleviate that. All right?
I just say acting on empathy for the definition.
That's good. That's fine. Again, should you guys write down every word I say to the T? Write down your understanding of it, because are you going to get it better then? Yeah. Okay. Compassion. There are activities in the future, boys, we're going to use for non-judgment, but compassion is the first one I like to use to start practicing non-judgment because we're distributing our focus from ourselves to other people. Okay? And will that translate to a more objective perception? 100%. Cool? So, compassion is a type of energy towards a relationship. Okay? So you truly want to help that other person. Thoughts and ego are connected. Write that down. We've already talked about that a little bit. Why are thoughts and ego connected? Perfect. Right? Ego is what creates judgment. Judgment's what creates our spiraling thoughts. Because have you guys seen in your meditation, what are normally your thoughts doing? What are they always about?
Crumbling.
Well, yeah. Are they always your take on something? Yeah. It's always about what you think about it, right? What you think about the situation, rather than what the situation actually is, which is what's preventing you from seeing it clearly. Okay? The biggest thing to understand about compassion, boys, is it has to be unchanging. Write that down. Unchanging compassion. Most people have great compassion towards people they like. It's easy to want someone to be happy if you like them, right? Say someone in high school is a bully. They're not a great human being. Okay? Is it harder to want them to be happy and to want them to stop struggling? It's a lot harder. But true compassion has to be unchanging. Okay? It can't be from preferences, because again, preferences come from what? Judgment. See how it all connects? Right? Our compassion has to be non-judging. Okay? We all matter. So when we talk about unchanging compassion, normally if we break it down, there's positive points of compassion, neutral points of compassion, and negative points of compassion. So negative could be the person you don't like. Matthias, obviously it's going to be easy for you to have compassion towards your siblings or parents, right? Okay? Negative could be someone that, you know, you have beef with, right? What would a neutral person be? Someone you see walking in the hall to school, or like the front desk person. Did you guys give 2 thoughts to the person at the front desk?
I talked to him one time.
Okay, you talked to him one time? But when you walked in today, were you like, wow, that's a real person, they have a real life, they have feelings, they struggle? Do you ever think about that for neutral people? No. Normally you don't, right? But is everyone living their own movie? It's not like they're not existing. They're existing, they live their own movie, but we don't give 2 thoughts for it. So see how that's an example? We never distribute any of our ego into people like that are neutral too. So normally we ignore.
Have you ever thought about any of us? Like,
What do you think I'm doing right now, Jadon? This is the whole reason I wanted to do sports psychology is compassion is a huge part of what helps me keep going. Because I actually want to help you guys, right? I don't see myself as separate from you. I see myself as part of you. Because are you guys going to change? Like, say you're 60 years old. Is some part of you going to be a little different because of this class? So there's some part of me that's part of you guys. That's cool. Is it way cooler to identify with everyone else than just separate me? Yeah. Okay. So good question, Jadon. You have to know to see. So this is going to make it easier for you to understand why it's important to have unchanging compassion and how to make it easier on negative people. You have to know to see. Write it down. Okay. Is there a cause for every action?
Yes.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Now have we learned, is an action independent from everything else in someone's life? An action is independent. Think about that. So say someone picks on another person. Is that an independent event, or were there a bunch of causes that went into that event? Bunch of causes. So it's an interconnected event. It is not independent. Normally we define people by what? A misperception of an independent event, right? We label that person. When in reality, there's a million things that go into every event in our life. It's very interconnected. So that's what you have to know to see means. So there's genes. Do you guys know what genetics are? Okay, so genetics like the DNA makeup of yourself, okay? That predisposes you to do certain things, all right? And environment. So all of you have a different home life, correct? Yeah. All of you, like an environment could be my day-to-day. I have a different environment than you guys have, okay? All of these 2 main things, lead people to choice and decision-making, okay? So if we look at an event, say the negative person we have beef with, right? We judge that as an independent event, or this person is that. Okay, does that make it a lot harder to have compassion? So you have to know to see is taking into account there's so many things going into this event. And it's much easier to have compassion towards them. It is not completely their fault. If you don't see the movie you're watching, do you have favorite parts about the movie? No. You don't, because you don't see it. You don't understand what the cause is. You can't replicate the things you don't want. So are we all going through that similar struggle? So do they actually really know what they're doing? No. Okay? So is it easier to have compassion without understanding? Yes, that's why I want to talk about it. Cool? So I didn't know how long this was going to take, so I'm going to have to cut up other parts of the heart speech, but we'll talk about more of them in a later class. Okay, but now we're going to learn an activity to build compassion. Okay, so throughout the week, you have a minimum of 5. Matthias did 7. I encourage someone to do 7 days. That's awesome. Okay? But a minimum of 5 days this week, and we're going to go for 6 minutes now. We're going up a minute. Why? We're slowly growing, right? So it's not too far outside your comfort zone. All of you have shown that you can do 5 minutes. So we're going to go a little bit higher. Is that cool? So our activity, boys, okay, is the 3-stage compassion activity. Write down. Okay? So right now, everyone's going to write down 3 people. 1 positive, 1 neutral, and 1 negative. Okay? Everyone write down 3 people in their life. That's one of those examples. You don't have to tell other people. Keep it to yourself. Okay? But what we're going to be doing, boys, so meditation, say we're working on 1 object meditation. That means we're focused on what? One thing. So when we get lost, we come back to that what? If we're focused on the one thing, right? We come back to that one thing. So does it always have to be the breath and meditation, boys? No, it can be a bunch of different things. For these activities, You're going to be doing 2 minutes per each person, so that equals 6 minutes total. All right, and you're starting with positive, neutral, negative. Okay? What this means, boys, all right, when you visualize this person, that's what you're going to be doing when you sit in your normal meditative position that we've worked on. Okay, you're visualizing and you're starting with the positive person. Okay, so say for me, I'm visualizing my mother. Okay, I sit down in my normal meditative position. When I close my eyes, I'm thinking of her, and what I'm focused on is I'm trying to build compassion. I'm trying to actively build that muscle inside me. I'm trying to alleviate her suffering. I want to help you. I want you to struggle less. I'm trying to build that muscle that truly wants me to make that feeling easy. It's a type of feeling. Does that make sense, boys, what we're trying to do? When the 2 minutes are up, what do we go to next? Neutral. So someone that's neutral. Same concept. I want happiness for that person, or I want that person to be free. I want them to stop struggling. Okay? You're thinking about them as a person, right? Negative would be what? Whatever person that you struggle to have compassion towards. But is everyone deserving of not struggling? Yeah. Everyone. Everyone's deserving of that. Doesn't matter what they've done. If you do this, it should feel good. There should be a good feeling. You should be fulfilled that you're stopping identifying so much with the separate self. Cool? But hopefully this primes your brain for the day to start thinking about other people more. Because if we start distributing our separate ego, will we stop judging as much? Yes. Cool? So we're going to do one. What's the time?
13.
Okay, we're going to do the positive just for today. Why do you think we go positive, neutral, negative? Is it easier to progress that way? Yeah. If you start with negative, it's a lot harder to think of that person and be like, I want you to struggle less. Does that make sense? But just when you're doing this, remember that these are people, they live movies just like you. And we're equaling that out. We're not more important, we're not less important than everyone we're thinking about. Cool? Cool. So you're going to go 1 minute for positive. Everybody get in their position. Are there questions about what you're doing? No? One thing that I imagine breathing light or something free, happiness. I'm trying to stay away from stigma words. Okay, but whatever makes you feel that compassion, what you think it is towards them. Cool? All right, ready? Go. Time. How'd we do? Okay, that was really quick, boys, but are we moving when we do this? Where are our hands? On our knees. You're doing your best not to move. When we get lost, is that okay? Totally okay. You just come back to that visualization. What are our reflections? Did anybody feel what compassion feels like when they did that? Yes or no? Are there questions? Because right now is your time, because I want you to know what to do when you're gone from here. Everybody's good? What do we think? Did we like today? Yeah. Do we think it's beneficial again? Yeah. Okay. So come back. Do not show up to class next time if you're not going to do your activities. One thing, pick different people each day. Cool? Don't do the same person every day. Cool, boys? Great work, y'all. Thanks, brother.